Now we have a third talk by Dr. V. N. Shukla. Dr. Shukla was working in CDAC Mohali, and he was one of the chief drivers of the Digital Library of India project from Mohali. It's a great pleasure to welcome uh, Dr. Shukla. Dr. Shukla, you can go ahead. Partha, you
Thank
can
you.
remove your presentation.
When we heard the well founded dream of Dr. Raj through Dr. Balki for the first time in 2001 or 2, we were worried because we knew that Dr. Balki was and is a taskmaster and he would make us do something which we may not be able to deliver, kind of thing. So, with that fear, when we started, we tried to look at this particular content management part of digital library, and we found that our area of research can also be collaborative with respect to the activity for digital library, and with that foundation we started working for information retrieval, for data warehousing, for various aspects. We started working on that. Then, as in a corporate world, people say, study the market before you start activity. We studied this area of the country, and we found that libraries are usually user centric or content centric or system centric. And we tried to find out suitable libraries which we can deal with, we can talk to, we can collaborate with them, and content could be digitized. Using that concept, when we entered into the world of these libraries, we found that large amount of content is available. Only correlating that particular part was required, and we did that. For user centric thing, we created Gyan Nidhi. It's a multilingual parallel corpus developed in one English language plus 12 major Indian languages by various institutions nearby, and we captured that, we created that particular part. For content centric part, we visited various university libraries like Jamia Millia, like Delhi University, like Gujarat University, like Pantnagar University, and their contents, whatsoever were available and whatsoever they wanted to share as a copyright free kind of a thing, we started digitizing that. But then we found that there is another angle to the library. And since India being agriculture oriented kind of a country, we concentrated on some institutions like Indian Council of Agriculture Research, like Pantnagar University, like University Agriculture University at Pune and nearby, and we tried to capture that particular content from research institutes like ICAR as well as universities, and we found very interesting outcome out of it, which I would like to present over here. We found that thousands and millions of mails of appreciation coming to DLI because of this content made available to them from researchers, from agriculture people, and from teaching people out over there. And ultimately, we found that some of the methods used for growing some crop in Andhra, like rice, they have implemented somewhere in Himachal where small plateaus were there, and their produce increased a lot. Credit, of course, goes to Pantnagar University near Nainital. But we were the reason for connecting these two different ends together, and then that is the outcome of digital library we assumed, we pointed out. As far as system, we started working on interoperability. We started on indexing, creating multiple language put together, and then ultimately for our own research of cross-lingual access, for machine translations, for extractions and knowledge management, we started creating test beds. And one good example I can cite is that of National Book Trust. National Book Trust is in Delhi. We contacted them and we collected all that, and we made this particular Prabandhika available to them as well as to others. There were appreciation from researchers because they got access to this particular part. As far as natural language processing research in CDAC continued, because of the content that we are getting in digital library, we could create good amount of outcomes. Indian language, everybody knows, it's a conjunct oriented, and because of conjunct, different kind of a grammatical rules for computational linguistic part are required, and statistics for that part was not available for variety of reasons, because the content is not digital savvy content, it's only image form, so it cannot be processed using some algorithm. Now in digital library, when we created those component and using OCR we created, researchers got some option to work with their algorithm to find out variety of things. And we found that in one of the document, something like Ishwar was written in this manner. It should not have been, it should have been written like this. So these kind of observations were seen by variety of researchers, and we really got good kind of viewers to our work coming out. Our task was to scan, to create metadata. That is the credit Dr. Balki has, because he gave us the structure and accordingly he bound us to create that kind of a structure only as a metadata. So with that, how can we align multilingual corpus at sentence as well as word level? We did it, and some of the components, some of the outcome Dr. Pushpak has used for creation of WordNet also. For part of speech tagging, for development of tools for automatic sentence and character alignments, translation memory creation, I was working on a machine translation system with Dr. R.M.K. Sinha, rule-based machine translation, and we could expand that particular rule-based approach for machine translation by introducing translation memories together, and good amount of work progressed in that research, and ultimately statistical based translation plus rule based translation combined together as a hybrid system came up into existence, and it was being used in the different places. Creation of test bed for OCR, I think Dr. Partha has already pointed out, and Dr. Ajay sir also pointed out that OCR went through cycles of improvement, particularly for Indian languages. We started working for Devanagari script, and that particular OCR improved a lot because the content now is available, test beds are now available, and that was one of the outcome besides having digital content in digital library, and besides having its original aim being satisfied for accessibility to large amount of people, large group of people. Automated text summarization for Indian languages was another aspect we took over, and we did something. Development of cross-lingual information retrieval, I think about that Dr. Sangal, next speaker, will be speaking better because he led that particular mission mode project, and about that we continued to work. Semantic indexing and contextual search was very important. Because of this particular component of research, we were ultimately able to become part and parcel of W3C. We established a contact with them, and then semantic thing, a group was established for semantic thing there for standardization, and it could work for some of the Indian languages as well. Some success stories. Besides scanning, digitizing, content creation and all, and some component of research, we also thought that we need to proliferate this information that Digital Library of India is coming into existence and people can access it. We created another project called Dware Dware Gyan Sampada, and on a van we established satellite dish, we established some equipment inside, and that van moved around nearby places in Himalaya, in Nainital area, in other area of Uttarakhand, and we proliferated that information. What we did was we made a presentation to the group of people, those who gathered there, and we distributed some printed copy by taking print from that and give it to them, and people were very happy. But that was not the outcome which was important. The outcome was when our van went there, plenty of libraries which were local libraries at that area, in that area, Garhwal area and Nainital area, they came forward and they shook hands with us. So we digitized their library again. So we had another van in which we had scanning facility, and that van used to move around, scan copies, scan books, whatsoever, and bring it. But there was a challenge there. Just half a minute. In this area of Garhwal and Nainital, long back when Britishers were ruling India, they established their houses to stay during the summer period for long months, long duration, and they created some library because that time reading was the only entertainment they could have during evening or night time. And those libraries were maintained later also. So even today, when we go, we find some local library. In Nainital particularly, there were books. Those books were printed long, long before. And those books were there, we captured. But besides that, some content created by those people, low-end authors and local authors, they were also there. We scanned them, but then problem was how to create metadata for this, because metadata was not clear. Dr. Balki guided us and we did that. Now, with those kind of books, another good thing I just want to point out here, Belvada Industries, which is a textile industry, they saw those because there were some books in which some designs were printed, some descriptions were written, some diagrams were drawn, some printing kind of a thing was done by hand and something, and some description was written. They captured that for printing onto saris and other kind of clothing material. So that outcome came up out of it from the mobile digital library. This is a pamphlet. This shows a vehicle which moved around, and in this pamphlet we also mentioned the Nagari Pracharani Sabha. I would like to take half a minute to explain about it. Nagari Pracharani Sabha in Varanasi is the oldest setup of library kind of thing, research institute kind of thing for literature. It came into existence somewhat in early 1870s, and they had some good amount of material, manuscripts written by Premchandji, manuscript written by original authors from Maithili group and Bangla group and Bengali language group, and they had it. They also had newspapers what were written by hand and distributed copies of those newspaper long back in 1820 or 1812 kind of thing. So we digitized that, and when we made this thing available through our mini portal immediately, of course Dr. Balki only guided us for that. We created portal, and that portal was made available to public. So all across the country, researchers in literature, they accessed it. And I remember every day 2 to 3,000 new researchers were added, and almost something 50-60,000 users use that particular content for formulating their PhD research or thesis or something. And I'm sure DLI's name will be there in their acknowledgement in all those kind of things. So academic research, business research we did. This was our portal, Digital Library of India. We created from CDAC and operated, because by that time the setup of Arnet was not ready, it was getting ready. So we started that particular part, and these are the libraries we digitized to 80 to 90% content. Energy Resources Institute, Indian Council of Cultural Relations, all those libraries are very important libraries, and they give us a good amount of content. Examples are here. ICCR gave us rare books, manuscripts in Persian, Arabic, Urdu as well. Gurukul Kangri gave us good amount of rare books, 17th century and 19th century covered books. Indian Agriculture Research Institute gave us very important thing, one classic thing about it. They had only 2 copies of the books, duly printed somewhat in early 1600th century. I don't know how they printed it, but those copies were there. Only 2 copies. One was in IARI Calcutta, and another was in Delhi, and that book was kept in a showcase above on the top of the rack. But they took the risk, and we digitized those books, and those books are also available. Of course, Pilani also we visited. This was normal statistics during that period. We used to scan so many pages, so many books, and so many languages. So almost 14 languages we covered, and almost 9 different scripts we covered and we created. And as an outcome, we created some tools of this nature: machine translation, transliteration tools, multilingual crawlers, text summarizers, cross-lingual information access systems, and like that. So we created that. Tools are also available now on ildc.gov.in. We uploaded there. But another outcome came out of digital library only. Success factor of this particular thing is definitely based on digital DLI content. Long time back in 2004, it was a demand that printing in India, in Indian languages, is finding some trouble because fonts are not there, because so many things are not there. So it was decided that we create fonts and distribute free. Now, to create fonts, definitely contents are required, and those contents have been brought. I think my previous speaker, Dr. Partha, he indicated that content in English is too much, but in Indian language is less. The scenario in 2002 and through was much poor about it, and we distributed these CDs, including Urdu language as well. And ultimately, as I pointed out, CDAC became W3C member, and through W3C, Semantic Web also we created. With this, I close. Thank you very much and namaste.